I remember talking about my house at Christmas time and what was there, but springtime is a different story. In my house, it's where I get to exercise control. I work with children, no control over children. I work with the choir. But at my house, I know where absolutely everything is at any time. I can close my eyes and I could move around in my house and get whatever I needed because I always put every single thing back. And so when people ask me where things are, I can say top shelf, right side, second drawer, and it's always there. So when spring cleaning comes, for me, it's like the little picky things. So in my office, I know that to the left side, there's a basket of books that needs to be organized, books that people have given me that I don't yet have time to read. And on the right side, above the printer, there's things that I need to prioritize, things that I have to do, but they're a little out of order right now. And then in the breakfast nook corner behind the chair, there is that big bag of dog food that I don't have a clip strong enough to hold it, and so I just keep trying to roll it up, but it doesn't work. Those are the things that I'm working on, so you'll know what I'm doing. So since people use Lent as this time of release and renewal, how about taking these last few days, and we only have a few before Easter, as days of renewal, of refresh, of body, mind, and spirit. Not just the obvious things, but those little things, the things that you might have ignored. Refresh your space, refresh your garden if you have one, refresh your plants, refresh your outlook, and refresh what I call your in-look. Because sitting within are our ideologies, our perceptions, our old beliefs, usually based on, we don't know. They're the stories that we tell ourselves, those narratives that eventually become an ingrained belief, a limiting belief. And then they slowly, unfortunately, start to define our reality. That's why we believe things and we really don't even know why we believe them. Sometimes they're not the stories that we tell ourselves. They're the stories that somebody else has told somebody else, and it just ended up inside of us. So this morning, I want you to prepare yourself for some spiritual, historical information as we journey through some maybe new understandings. So to grow into the best version of yourself, let me go back there. To refresh our in-look, we have to let go of old beliefs that just don't serve us anymore and spring forward into new truths that have been there, but we just didn't know it. It's like new thought that has new thoughts about new thoughts. So I'm going to share a few with you, and you just got to have a peek. Some of them might be difficult, some of them might be funny, but this is the first one. When did Jesus become white? Somebody asked me would I talk about that at some point, and I said, yes, I will, and then here we go. So asking that, I don't mean to say that this historical Jesus underwent ethnic cleansing and changed colors. But what I am saying is that historically, the Jesus that we see in pictures is not the historical Jesus who lived in what is now considered the Middle East. This map shows where Jesus was born, Bethlehem. This is Bethlehem in the time of history. The brown part says Judea, if you can see that down at the bottom. This close-up shows Nazareth, just a little bit higher from Bethlehem. So some people say Jesus of Bethlehem, some people say Jesus of Nazareth. That was the area. Both of those areas are captured in this modern day map. And that almost makes you want to inhale. So there's the close-up, where Nazareth is very clearly a little farther up from where Bethlehem would be. But here's the thing. What did a man from Bethlehem or Nazareth look like back in Jesus' day? There are no photos of Jesus. There's lots of information about the fact that he walked, he talked, he did this and he did that, but there are no photos, although his existence is proven historically. Well, many historians, scholars, and archaeologists have put together what people looked like in the area where Jesus was supposed to have been born and grew up, and they've come up with a few different renditions. I'll share you mine shortly. This is one that Deanne found. Well, that's mine. These are the pictures of what some of the people in that area looked like at the time. Not white. But it makes sense when you look at the geography of where Jesus was born back then. There it is again. That area is there. It's now called the Middle East. Back then, it was called Northeast Africa. You breathing? Even clearer, historians show that the spot is about right there. I'm giving everybody a minute with this. So, human rights historian, journalist Richard Sudan states, Jesus was born in Bethlehem, present-day Palestine region. Some say not quite Palestine, maybe it's part of Israel, which at the time of his birth was considered Northeast Africa. The term Middle East wasn't coined until the 1850s, after the creation of the Suez Canal by the British, long after the lifetime of Jesus. And if anybody has read that story in the Bible or heard of that story in the Bible where the angel comes to Joseph and says, you need to go to Egypt, you need to hide the family because Herod is going to come trying to look for Jesus to kill Jesus. Well, imagine what people look like in Egypt and imagine hiding. I told you some of this was going to be funny. It just couldn't have happened that way. So, of some of the artist renditions of what Jesus may have looked like, this is one of the ones that Deanne shared with me. Someone who looked similar to the coloring of people in that area. They did not have long hair then. Men often wore scarves over. And so this is not the Jesus that we have seen, but this is an example of what many people have come up with. So how did that happen? Well, as the stories about Jesus started to carry through different cultures, many cultures would make a Jesus that looked like their culture. And when Europeans shared the information about Jesus, Jesus became the look of someone who was white and European looking. When Europeans came to the United States and brought their teachings to the United States, they also brought white Jesus along with them. No one's killing me yet? So with each culture, Jesus changed colors. If you Google Asian Jesus, you'll find one. You'll find one in just about any culture. So I call this the greatest story never told. When we learn to remove the concept of racial domination, we start to see all of the ways in which it's manifested itself. One researcher said Western European missionaries carried the white Jesus image to colonized continents, turning white Jesus into an ideology. Missionaries indoctrinated colonized students to accept white domination. In Nazi Germany, some scholars tried to strip Jesus of his cultural identity by proposing that Jesus was an Aryan, not a Jew. Jesus was made white because white evangelical churches in America, unable to distinguish between politics and faith, created Jesus according to the image of the dominant people. Christians are exposed to the image of white Jesus, implying that God is white, affirming a white superiority. But these descriptions of Jesus are based on cultural stereotypes, not historical and archaeological analysis. So when we learn how to remove a concept of racial domination, we start to see the ways in which it has manifested itself and endured. And we open up a way of human understanding that is underpinned in love, in peace, and in justice. And I love this quote: when white-skinned people welcome a brown-skinned Jesus, and this is the one that I have, into their homes and churches, they embrace and live Jesus' message and stand in solidarity for the disadvantaged. Think about that. And the wonderful thing, I think, about unity is that there's a commitment to provide the ever-changing truth as we know it, and to be open to receiving it and embracing it. The stories we think we surely got right, but didn't quite, keep coming up and will keep coming up. And we can be upset over it, we can keep carrying that, or we can move forward. So here's one that a lot of people thought they knew. Who knows who that is? Rosa Parks. Rosa Parks, not the first person who refused to give up her seat on the bus. But everybody thinks so. I want to introduce you to 4 women who preceded her. These 4 women are important because they give us a lesson that not just one person stood up, but many people stood up. So I want to introduce you to PFC Sarah Keyes, to 15-year-old Claudette Colvin, to Aurelia Browder, who refused to give up her seat on the bus 8 months before Rosa Parks and 1 month after Claudia Colvin, and Mary Louise Smith Ware. And if anybody wants to read about all of the other people, because these are only 4, there are many people who refuse to give up their seat. There's a book that's called Right to Ride, and it gives you the stories that a lot of us don't know. So this story tells you one person did it. This story says you can too, because many other people stood up. Courage is on display every day, not through a single story, but through the story of many. So I'm going to leave you today with the person of the day, and that is Patrick. So the story goes, among other things, that Patrick, who wasn't Patrick at the time, was enslaved as a child, who escaped, found his way to Ireland, and got rid of all of the snakes in Ireland. And I'm not going to give you the whole story because it's St. Patrick's Day. But deep history unearths information that Patrick's family, as were many wealthy families at that time, were slaveholding families. So Patrick was not enslaved. Patrick had slaves, and Patrick sold slaves. And the money that he got from the slaves that he sold allowed him to go to Ireland and to live in Ireland and to change what he did before. He didn't want to follow his father's tradition, and he ended up becoming a priest. But it funded his journey and his ability to be able to continue life in Ireland. So what about that shamrock he's holding? Well, part of what Patrick did was to teach the colonized individuals about the Holy Trinity. And he very creatively used the shamrock as the example of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit, or the Holy Ghost. And that is how many people he felt needed to see a visual to really understand what the Trinity was like. And so the story goes that he was the person who came up with that idea. But what about the snakes? Well, let's say this. Ireland is completely free of snakes. But Ireland was completely free of snakes. The last ice age ended more than 10,000 years ago. The ice age made the islands inhospitable to reptiles whose cold-blooded bodies needed heat from the surroundings in order for them to survive. So people don't think there were ever snakes in Ireland, but if there were, definitely, by the time of the last ice age, they were not there. It was not Patrick. Sorry, Patrick, it wasn't you. But you can still eat your corned beef and cabbage. And I could tell you about the corned beef, but I won't. I think I'll stop there. What I think is that the most incredible lesson that we have here is that we have to recraft our DNA. We have latched on to information for all of our lives, all of our parents' lives, all of our community's lives, and we've etched it into our identity and made it a part of who we are, branded it into our own self-awareness, and based everything that we do on these things that aren't true, aren't real, someone else's concept, someone else's ideology. And how we respond to things that may not be true is up to us. We could choose to carry the burden like the young monk and complain and complain and complain. Why didn't they tell us? Why didn't I know? I don't have to change anything. I don't need to know this. Or we could just let go of that and just spring forward. We can let go of the anger of the things that we didn't know. And as it says here, be willing to let go of old self-identities so you can explore more of who you are through new experiences. Think of all that we could be and do and know if we didn't live in what is changing now and what we're learning now. We can just move forward and we can just say, that's a new one. Let me see what that means. And we can start to ask questions about days, about situations, about people. And we could say, wait a minute, let me fact check that. Let me just see about that. And the wonderful thing, I think, about unity is that we have opened a safe space, and we're invited to be courageously uncomfortable, knowing more, recognizing more, and more is going to keep coming up because we keep finding out more of history. And isn't that a wonderful thing rather than leaving us stuck in the not knowing, in the unknowing, in the wrong knowing. We can lose the excess weight of old identities, and we can give ourselves the freedom to have new experiences based on new thought and a refreshed in-look. Jeremy, come on up. So I want to give you just a moment of a meditation time, but I'm going to talk through the meditation. So if you'll just find a comfortable place for yourself. I'm just going to keep saying these words. Let the truth that I seek reveal itself to me. May what is hidden become clear, and may I embrace it, knowing that truth elevates. Let the truth that I seek reveal itself to me. May what is hidden become clear, and may I embrace it, knowing that truth elevates. Let the truth that I seek reveal itself to me. May what is hidden always become clear, and may I continually embrace it, knowing that truth elevates.